In for loops in Python, frequently the range function is used. Just to let you remember the for loops in Java. How were you writing for loops in Java? In Java, you were writing the for loops like this: for int, let's say j is equal to 0, as long as j is, let's say, less than 100, for example, j plus plus, etc. You were writing loops like this. The same, this type of loops where you have an integer variable, which is increased by 1 or by 2 or whatever, and going up to a number, or you can have something like j start with this one, as long as it is greater than 0, for example, decrement j, etc. If you have this type of loops, which starts from a certain number, and every time it is increased or decreased by 1 or by other values, for example, let's say minus equal 10, something like this, then we can build this type of loops by using the range function in Python. However, in Java, we can have something like this: double x, or let's say term is equal to 0.5, as long as term is greater than 0.0001, then new value of term is divided by 2, of course, etc. If you have this type of for loops, which has a double value, a double variable, which is changed by some assignment statement, etc., cannot be written in Python. Okay, because the range function uses only integers. So this type of Java loops cannot be implemented, but you can implement the Java loops which uses integer values. So we have to learn first range function. The range function generates a sequence of numbers. It will generate a sequence of integers. It may have a single parameter, 2 parameters, or 3 parameters. So we will see. Let's see what they are. If we have a single parameter, then the start value is equal to 0. So writing with a single parameter, which is a stop value, is equivalent to write 0, stop, like 2 parameters. With a single value, single integer value, it will start from 0. It will get the values, the sequence of values 0, 1, 2, blah, blah, up to 1 less than the stop number. If the stop number is, for example, 10, the generated numbers will be 0, 1, 2, up to 9. Okay, so it will start from 0. It will go to 1 less than the stop number. When it reaches the stop number, it will stop. It will not use that stop number. When we have 2 parameters, it will start from the start number, will go up to excluding the stop number. Here, with single one, the stop number is excluded. With double, stop number is excluded. With triple parameter, stop number is excluded. Stop number is always excluded. So if I have, for example, 10, 20, it will start with 10, will generate 11, 12, etc. It will go up to 19. The stop number 20 will be exclusive. So if I want to, for example, write a program which will just add, for example, from 1 to 9, what I will be doing, let's say total equals 0. Of course, I need to assign 0 or initialize 0 to my total variable for all n in range. This is how we write. I will explain this in a minute. Start from 1. I want to find the sum of all numbers from 1 to 10 inclusive. Therefore, I have to write here 11. So in that case, this will just get the values 1, then 2, 3, etc. up to including 10. 11 will be exclusive. Okay. So what I will be doing, I will say total plus equal n. Print total outside the for loop. Since this print total will be outside the for loop, it will not be indented as other statements inside the for loop. 55. Now, so the range with a start and stop will start from the initial value, will go up to and excluding the stop value. We have three parameters. We again have start as first parameter, stop as second parameter. Start is included, stop is excluded, and every time the variable or the value which is generated by range function is incremented. For example, if I have 10 to 20 and 2, what will be the values generated with this range function? It will be 10 is the initial value. The initial value will almost always be there. When it will not be there, I will show it in a minute. 10, then increase by 2, 12, 14, etc. At one time, it will reach 20. Since this 20 is stop number, which is excluded, it will only get values from 10 to 18. Or here, when we have something like this, 120 and minus 8. Now we have a negative increment. So starting when the increment is negative, then the second parameter must be less than the first parameter. So it will start with 100, minus 8, 92, minus 8, 84, blah, blah, blah. At one time, it will be 28. And the next value after 28 will be 28 minus 8, 20, which will be exclusive. So this value will not be used at all. Okay. So we can have a positive increment or negative increment. Assume I want to print all single-digit integer numbers. What I need to do, I will just ask you a question. I want us to print the single-digit integer numbers 0, 10, or let's just 10, the same thing. 10, just range 10 and 0, 10 is same. How for loop works? It gets the values in the sequence generated by the range inside this variable in the for loop variable, and the body of the for loop is repeated for those values of n. So here 0 to 10 will generate values 0 to 9. It will print those values. Are these single-digit integer, all single-digit integer numbers? Of course, not total. I have to say print n. No, of course, we don't have any total. Let's run it again. These are not the only single-digit integer numbers, because the single-digit integer number starts from minus 9. Minus 9 to plus 9 are all single-digit integer numbers. Okay. Now we have all single-digit integer numbers. The others were non-negative single-digit integer numbers. So here I'm printing all single-digit integer numbers, starting from minus 9 to plus 9 inclusive. We have those digits. So 10 is exclusive. So the default increment is 1. So starting from minus 9, increase by 1, minus 8, increase by 1, minus 7, up to 9. 10 is exclusive. This is how for loop works. Here we have a variable, and then after in keyword, we have the range function. Now let's print, for example, all 2-digit integer, positive integer numbers. So what I will be writing for, let's say, n in range 2 digits, start with 110 up to 100 exclusive, then increment by 2. Now we will get 2-digit even positive integer numbers, 10, 12, 14, etc. Or just let's do it like this. Let's print them. What it will print? It will print 10, 11, 12, 13, etc. It will print all two-digit integer numbers. I want to print only the even integer numbers, 10, 12, 14, 16. I don't want to print the odd numbers. So what I have to do, I can say if n modulus 2 equals 0, then n is even. This is the condition to check if n is even or not. So if the number is even, then print it. Otherwise, don't print it. So I will get only the even numbers. But instead of doing it like that, what I can do for m in range, start from 10, go up to 100 exclusive, but every time increment by 2 on 2. So after 10, get 12, then 14, 16, etc. Then print m will print the same thing. And in between, I will just print 20 times equal sign. I will explain this next week. Now, at one time after here, I have this line after 98, here this, and then again 10, 12, etc. We are going up to 98. So what I did now, start with 10. Every time increase the for loop variable, which is m in the second loop, by 2. So 10, after 10, 12, 14, 16, 18, 20, 22, etc. As long as those values are less than 100, continue up to 98. This is how we write for loops. One strength of for loops in Python is that here after in word, keyword, range is a sequence of numbers. This range function 10, 102 generates numbers from 10 to 98 with increments of 2, or this range 10, 100 will generate numbers from 10 to 99, all integer numbers from 10 to 99, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, etc. up to 99. This is a sequence of numbers. This is another sequence of numbers. Here, after in, we use things that are called iterables. A range function creates a sequence of numbers which is iterable. You can start from the first one, then go to the next, next. So you can iterate inside the values generated by the numbers by range function. But strings are also iterable. Strings consist of multiple characters. Now let's say s is equal to, let's write here, hello world. Now I can write for, take it in s. Now s is a string. Okay. Here we have range function, which is a sequence of numbers. Now s is a sequence of characters. So you will probably guess what will happen. Every single character will be taken one by one, put into C, and the body of the for loop will be printed. Let's say print, for example, C. Let's run this. Of course, let's comment this out. Dun, 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 3 times. If you want to comment a group of statements, you can convert all of them to strings or just string comment, let's say. Now, by putting 3 times double quotation mark before and 3 times double quotation mark after, I have converted this part to something like comment. It doesn't count anymore as Python statements. Now I will just get this one, hello world. So the for loops in Python uses an iterable after the in keyword, and every element of the iterable here is taken one by one, put into the for loop variable n here or c here, and the loop is repeated. Since S is a string, it's a collection of characters, so it's an iterable item. You can iterate between characters of the string, okay? So we get one by one. In the future, in 2-3 weeks time, you will see lists which are similar to array list in Java. And lists contain multiple items, so lists are iterable. So you can write something like that, for example, for element in list 1, for example. Assume that list 1 is a list which contains multiple items, then you will be able to write for loops like this, but it is too early for that. So we can use the for loop for the iterables which contain multiple items. But they have to be ordered. Here, H, E, L, L, O, etc. are ordered. There are some data structures which are not ordered, therefore which are not iterable. If they are not ordered, they cannot iterable. You know the sets in mathematics. The elements of sets are not ordered. They are unordered. So you cannot use a set here. Python has a data structure called set. You cannot use set here, but you can use other data structures which have ordered elements. And why do we need ordered? Because it has to be taken in some order. The first time the loop will get the first element, then the second element, and the third element. So the elements must be ordered in the thing that is used after the in. Range 10, 100 is an ordered set. The first element is 10, then 11, 12, 13, 14, etc. It's ordered. And hello world is ordered. First there's letter H, then E, L, L, O, space, etc. They are ordered. When you have something ordered, then you can use in a for statement here after in. It will take every single element one by one, and the body of the loop will be repeated for that value. So this is about for loops. When we write a for loop, as you have noticed, like in if statement, the for loop, after writing for a variable in an iterable, it always has to have colon at the end of this, like we have a colon after if statement, and then all the statements have to be indented equally. If I have more than one statement in an for loop, then I have to have initial and equal indentation. The indentation here and here and here are equal. Therefore, these statements are all part of the for statement. Okay. You can interrupt me if you have any question or any doubt or anything, any unclear things. You can stop me and ask your question. So let's try to solve this one. Naturally, there are multiple solutions for some of the problems. Here we have this kind of problem. Write a Python for loop that prints, let's abbreviate it, 3 digits. 4 digits will be too much. So let's abbreviate it. Write a Python for loop that prints 3-digit positive integer numbers that ends with 77. So the last 2 digits will be 77. Which are they? 177, 277, 377, up to 977. So we want to write this for loop or this Python program. So solution 1, print solution 1. I will generate all 3-digit positive integer numbers. How can I do that? For an in range start with 100, go up to 1000 exclusive. So this for loop will generate all 4-digit positive integer numbers 100, 101, 102, etc. up to 999. Don't forget that the stop number is exclusive. It is not included. So it will get these numbers. And then inside for loop, I'm interested in numbers which ends with 77. How can I check if n ends with 77? Quite simple. If n modulus 100 equal 77, then the last two digits are 77, isn't it? So in that case, we will print n. This is solution number 1. Let's run the program. Here they are. Now let's print 10 times this. I will explain this as I said to you later on, probably next week. Now, solution 2. What is the smallest number, 3-digit positive number, which ends with 77? It is 177. So I can start with 177. And in order to get the next number, since this is a 2-digit number, the next number which has 77 as the last 2 digits is 100 more than the previous number, 177, 277, etc. So the increase between the first one, the second one, the third one, etc. is always 100. So what I can do, I can put here 100. Then it will just generate 177. Directly 277, 377, 977. Next one will be 1077, which is more than the stop value. We have to remain, if the increment is positive, the condition is that it has to be less than this stop value. Okay, as long as it is less than the stop value, it is fine. We continue the loop. So when I do this, I will get the same solution. Now, another solution. What can be another solution? Solution 3. What is common to these numbers? 77 is common. What is changing is the 1 here, or 2 at the before 77, 3 at the before, or 9 before 77 is changing. So my next solution is from 1 to 10, which generates value 1, 2, 3, 9, etc. So here I will have not this, but I will have just 1, 2, 3, 9. How can I get this number from 1 or 2 or 3? 100, blah, blah, and multiply by 100. 1 multiplied by 100, 100. 2 multiplied by 100 multiplied by 2, 200, plus 77. Solution 3. Let's run it, and we see that the solution 3 generates the same thing. So if you think you can find maybe 1 or 2 other solutions, but some of the solutions may be ugly, but anyway, here there are 3 different solutions. In each, I use range function, generate all 3-digit positive integer numbers, and then check if the last 2 digits is 77. Generate only the necessary numbers, therefore directly print those numbers. Or 77 is common. What is uncommon is the preceding 1, 2, 3, or 100, 200, 300, 900. So generate only those values, therefore multiply by 100 and add 77 to get the same values. Okay. To my opinion, the second solution is best, because it's here, this loop will repeat 900 times. From 100 to 1000, the body of the for loop will repeat 900 times. But here, it will only repeat 9 times. And here also 9 times. So the performance of this solution is much better than this solution. And this solution has approximately the same performance as this one. But here, we just generate the numbers and we print them. For each of these 9 numbers, from 1 to 9, we also do 1 multiplication plus 1 addition. So we have 9 times multiplication and 9 times addition. So the performance of this is worse than the performance of this solution. But anyway, all of them are correct. If I ask this type of question, whether you write this or this or this, you will get full points. They are all correct. Find sum of numbers divisible by n from n1 to n2. Assume that we have 2 numbers, n1 and n2, and then we have a third number, n, and I want to get the sum of all numbers which are divisible by n from n1 to n2, both inclusive, n2 inclusive. So how can I write it down? Now let's write the program for that. N1 is equal to convert to integer the input taken, enter, start number, and of course similarly use similar statement, n2, and let's call this div, enter start number or first number and last number, enter divisor. What we will be doing, we will try to print all numbers that are divisible by this one, by div, from n1 to n2, both inclusive. So what I will be doing, I will generate all numbers in range from n1 to n2 inclusive. If I write it like this, it will go up to n2 minus 1. But I want to include n2 as well. So what I'll be doing, plus 1. Quite simple. Now, this range function will generate all numbers starting from n1 up to n2 inclusive, because it will stop at n2 plus 1. Okay. Now, it will generate all numbers from n1 to n2 inclusive. From n1 to n2 inclusive. So if it is inclusive, you have to put here plus 1. The next one will be exclusive. Now, I want to find if these values n generated by this range function are divisible by div or not. How can I check this? If n modulus div equal to 0, then n is divisible by this div value. Then print n. Let's first run this. Enter first number, 101, 387, divisible by 22, which are this. Okay, these numbers are from 101 to 387, and they are divisible by 22. Now I want to get the sum of these. I can use sum. As you see, when I write sum, it is blue, not. This is now black. Sum is blue now because there is a function. You see f and sum. There is a Python function named sum. So when I use this, I can use sum is equal to 0. And just instead of printing them, add them to sum plus equal n. And after the for loop is finished, print sum. I can do this, but now sum is the name of a function for Python function. If I do this, I can do this, but I cannot use the sum function anymore in my program. So usually I avoid this. Let's say someone, and someone is my sum variable. So now we will find the sum of all these numbers. We are not printing those numbers, but we are adding those numbers and to someone. And someone will contain the sum of all these numbers. And the first number, 101, 387, and 2, for example, the sum is something like this. Any questions about these examples? Please stop me or ask me if you have any question. Nested for loop. We can have, of course, nested for loops in Python as well. Assume I want to print something like this on my screen. 1 asterisk, then 2 asterisk, and then 3 asterisk, 4 asterisk, etc., up to some number of asterisks. Okay. If n is 7, it will print 7 lines. If n is 22, it will print 22 lines. So I want to print something like this. How can I do? I can use a nested for loop. So let's do this now. Let's say n is equal to 8. So what I will be doing, I will print 1 asterisk on the first line, 2 asterisk on the second line, 8 asterisk on the last line. One way of doing this is for, let's say, row is equal to, it's not row in range from 1 to n plus 1, which will go from 1 to n. Okay. On the first line, for the first time, the row will be 1. The second time row will be 2, and the last time row will be 8, because here I have 8 plus 1, 9. So the values will be 1 to 8. And for column, let's say col in range, when we have row is equal to 1, then we will print 1. This second loop we should repeat only 1 time. When row is equal to 2, the second loop will repeat 2 times, so that we will print for the second line, it will print 2 asterisk. The third time, it will print 3 asterisks, then 4 asterisks, etc. So the number of asterisk is equal to the row value, because row starts with 1. Therefore, in our output, for the first line, the value of the variable row is equal to 1. For the second line, the value of the row variable is equal to 2, etc. And for the last line, it will be equal to n. It goes up to n plus 1 exclusive, so up to n inclusive. So here I want to repeat this row times. There are 2 ways of doing this. I can either say start from 1, go to row plus 1. This is one way of doing it. So which values will be generated here? It will generate value 1, 2, 3 up to row. Therefore, this for loop will repeat row times from 1 to row inclusive, row plus 1 exclusive. Or what I can do the same thing with just row. What will happen? It will start from 0. Remember, if I don't have any first parameter, the start value is 0. It will go up to row minus 1. From 0 to row minus 1, it will again repeat row times. So I can use it like this. So what I have to do, print just an asterisk. But remember, the print prints the content, the parameter, and goes to the next line. But I want to stay on the same line, because if, for example, row is equal to 4, print this, don't go to the next line, print this, don't go to the next line, etc. For after printing every asterisk, stay on the same line. So what I have to do, and equal null string. Don't print anything. Stay on the same line. Now, let's run this. But it printed everything on one line. Why? I didn't go to the next line. When I should go to the next line? After printing all asterisk on a line. Inside this one, I have to go to the next line. So what I have to do, I have to have a print here. After finishing the inner for loop, the nested for loop, I have to go to the next line. Let's do this. Now I have something decent. Correct. Okay. So this is one way of doing this to solve this question. Next, I want to print, for example, so I want to get something like this. I want to get something like this. The first line contains n asterisk. The next line has one less, then one less, up to 1. Okay, I want to print something like this. What I will do, let's copy this. There are several ways of solving this. What I can do, I can start with n and go up to 0 exclusive by -1. So which values will be generated? What will be the values of row variable in this for loop? First n, and every time it will diminish by 1. n -1, n -2, excluding 0. So it will go up to 1. If n is 8, it will be 8, 7, 6, 5, blah, blah, up to 1. So row will be 8 for the first row. Let's put print here. Again, are now famous equal signs. I will have something like that. Okay. Now, for the first line, row is n. The second nested for loop just prints row number of asterisk sign. Okay. So since this only prints row number of asterisk sign, I have to set row equal to 8, then 7, 6, 5, etc. I can solve it like this. Now I will show you another way of solving this question, which is related with strings. It is strangely what you can do for this. Let's say Control C, V, and here just have a print row times equal asterisk. I will explain this in a minute. And then let's copy this. And get this. Put it here. Now I get the same result again. In Python, we can concatenate two strings with plus operator, but we can get a new string by multiplying a string with a number. What do I mean? I mean this. Let's go here. If I have, for example, Abba multiplied by 2, I'll get a new string which has this string repeated twice. Or if I have, sorry, Abba multiplied by, or let's say ABT multiplied by 5, I will get ABT 5 times. So this is asterisk is a string manipulation operator as well. It generates a new string, or let's say 20 times plus exclamation mark. Okay, I will get something like this. So in Python, you can create a new string by multiplying a string by a number. Then it will repeat this string that many times. So in order to print these type of things, this is one way of doing it, using nested for loops, but also you can do without nested for loops, because you only need to do this that many times. You have to print the asterisk, for example, the row times. So you just say row times asterisk. Okay. So this is one of the advantages of the Python. The Python operators are richer than the Java or C operators, etc. And also they enables to write or manipulate the strings in a much easier way that you will learn probably next week. I think next week I will explain to you the, let's go here in the syllabus. Yeah, next week I will explain to you strings. And when I will explain to you strings, then you will see that manipulating strings are much easier in Python compared to Java and compared to C. So probably you will like it because I enjoy writing Python programs. It makes life easier. It makes writing programming much easier. Now I will continue with while loop. While loop has a very similar structure to while loop in Java or C. You just have a while, and after while you have a condition. While, for example, n greater than 0, then repeat this loop. Of course, inside the loop, you have to write some statement which changes n so that at one time it will not be anymore greater than 0. At one time, n greater than 0 must be made false. Or you can break the while statement if you wish. Anyway, but I will explain this in a few minutes. Let's write now a program which uses while loops. Assume I want to find the factorial of a number using while loop, not by a for loop, but with a while loop. Let's say n is equal to 8. I want to find the factorial of 8 using a while loop. And what I do, factorial is equal to 1. So there are two ways of, or more than one way of writing the factorial by using while loop. What I can do, I can use the variable n in the while loop while n is greater than 1. What I can do, factorial is equal to the multiplication of the previous factorial by n. And then n is diminished by 1. And print, let's say n. Something like this. Of course, we have done something wrong. What is wrong? N is 8, factor is 1, factor is multiplied by 8, so it will be 8 times 1. Of course, not 8, but this is what I made the mistake. Okay. This is one way of doing it. What is how while works? As long as the condition is true, the body of the while loop executes. Quite simple. Same as Java while loop. The condition is checked at the beginning. If the condition is false, it continues with the statement after the while loop. If the condition is true, it executes the body of the while loop and checks the condition again. And as long as the condition is true, the body of the while loop is executed. But if I want to say back to, or let's say strn plus concatenate with this equal space plus string, convert to string. What I'm doing here, I'm converting n to string and concatenate this string and then convert factorial to string and concatenate it and print that string. So the whole thing is a string because I have a string and another string here, concatenate to the end of the string, that string, then concatenate that string. I have 3 strings, they are all concatenated. When I do this, I will get 1 factorial. Why? Because I've modified n. So what I will be doing, I will have, for example, k is equal to n, and instead of using n here, use our secondary variable k, then n will not be lost. Okay, 8 factorial. Now let's modify the question a little bit. Print the factorial of all numbers starting from 1 up to n. So what I'll be doing, I'll just say here a for loop for j in range 1, n plus 1 to get the n value as well. And then here, let's indent all of these. And here the j is this, so this will be j. This will be, okay. Now let's run this program and I will explain the program now. What I did wrong. Of course, yeah, that's better now. Okay, now what we are doing here, we have a loop, a for loop, and from 1 to n plus 1. So the sequence of values generated by this range function is 1 to n. N plus 1 is exclusive, therefore n is inclusive. So from 1 to 8, it will generate all numbers, and j will be those numbers 1, 2, 3 up to 8. And here what we are doing, we assign the value of j 1 to 8 to k, and here we compute the factorial, and then we print string blah blah blah. Now what I can do, instead of converting the factorial to string, I can do it like this. The result will be the same. strj is a string plus another string. So the print function here have two parameters. One string expression, which then generates a string, comma, an integer. As we have seen before, in print statement, in print function, we can have multiple parameters, and all parameters are printed with a space between them. So after printing the string, which is generated by this string expression, it will print one space. So after this equal sign, it will print one space and then the factorial. So let's clear it and let's run it again. So we will have exactly the same output. I don't need to convert this fact because print can print data of different types by a space between them. Like if I do this, instead of if I print the j and then comma, directly this, what will happen? I will have an extra space here between j and this one. Okay. Since I don't want this space, I made it the other way around. I made it like this, convert to string, and concatenate directly without any space, exclamation mark, space, and equal, in order to remove that space here. Okay, because prints a space between its parameters. The first parameter is an expression, a string expression. Second parameter is an integer, and it will put space between them, which are those spaces here. So this is while loop. In while loop, as long as the condition is true, the body of the for loop is executed. Nothing special. We have again break and continue statements like the break and continue in Java or C. Exactly same meaning. Break directly finishes a for loop. How they are written. Break and continue statements are written usually like this. In a for loop or while loop, whatever, whether it is a for loop or while loop, it doesn't matter, for or while. Blah, 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 blah. Then we will have probably some statements here. 99% we will have an if statement. If there is some condition, then probably do something, or maybe do nothing, but then break. We can have something like this. Of course, no semicolon. We will have this type of structure. Okay. In the for loop, we have several statements, and if some case is valid, then we may do something, maybe not, but then break. What break does, it doesn't continue the for loop or while loop anymore. It finishes immediately. It finishes the loop and goes outside to the next statement. Continue. The continuous statement just skips the rest. Okay, the continuous statement is just used to skip the rest and go to the beginning and continue with the next iteration. So if after continue you have nothing, it is meaningless. Okay, there is no use of writing continue like this, or just have, for example, something like else, something like this. Let's say this continue is meaningless because why? If this condition is true, after executing this, since there is no other statement inside for loop, else will not be executed, it will continue from the beginning. So the continue here has no meaning. But if I have some statements here, okay, then this continue will have some meaning. It will be useful. Otherwise, it will. If I don't have these statements, this will be useless. Okay, so you know break and continue from Java. So I will not do any example about that. I will continue because I have to finish. I want to finish the functions as well. How to write functions. I want to finish that part today as much as possible. I may continue with more examples next week about writing your own functions. But let's start the functions part now. Python has a number of built-in functions. We have seen some of these. For example, like int function. Int function is a data conversion function, convert to integer, or range function, which generates sequence of numbers, or input function, which gets input, or float function to convert to float, or str function to convert to string. But we have a rich collection of functions. Abs function gets the absolute value. Okay, in order to take the absolute value of something, we write abs. Let's do it here. Abs of minus 88.74 is equal to 88.74, for example. Okay, abs is the absolute value functions. You don't need to memorize any of these functions, but there are a number of functions like this. I will just show one or two. Sum function is just to get sum of things, like, for example, sum of 24, 12, for example, is 30. What is atmospheres? Okay. Okay, I understand. If you want, it will just take two arguments. It will give me the sum. It's not iterable. Forget about the sum. What I can do, sum of numbers from in range 1 to 10 is 55. No, 45. Because 10, excluding 10, if I have sum with 11, which will include 10, from 1 to 10, the sum of all numbers from 1 to 10 will be 55 anyway. So with sum function, you can use an iterable. If you have a range function, a sequence of range numbers, or if you want to get the sum of a list of numbers, you can put here the list, okay? And then you will get the sum of the list. Let me create a list quickly. In Python, lists are written like this: 7, 4, 8, 12, 4, for example, again. And sum of this list will be something like this. So sum function gets the sum of the values in an iterable, or of sum of two numbers. So there is, we will from time to time use sum. Similarly, we can use the min function to get the minimum, and max function to get the maximum. We will not probably use most of these the functions here, but these are the built-in functions. Anyway, how do we write our own functions? Now, I will just write a function to compute the factorial. Here we were doing a factorial operation, okay? We were finding the factorial. Now I will write a function def, for example, factorial, which will get a parameter. So this function will just, sorry, I will just what I'm doing. Fn is equal to factorial of, let's say, j, and print fn. Now I'll change this, but I will write the factorial. How the factorial is computed? If n is less than 1 or 0, less than 2, okay? If it is 1 or 0, or even negative for negative numbers, return 1. The factorial of 1 is 1. Factorial of 0 is 1. Assume that I'm just checking it for less than 2. I will not check for negative numbers. Otherwise, f is equal to 1. And then for all numbers j in range 2 to n plus 1, which includes n as well. Okay, n is my parameter. So this will generate numbers 2, 3, 4, 5 up to and including n. N plus 1 will be exclusive. So what I will be doing with these numbers, f multiply by this j, this variable, this numbers 2, 3, 4, 5 up to n. And of course, at the end, return f, which is the result, the factorial. Okay. Now I have my factorial function definition. How do we write the functions? First of all, we have to use the def keyword to define a function. Def defines the function, followed by a space, of course, followed by the function name. And then after the function name, between parentheses, we specify the parameters. There may be 0 parameter, 1 parameter, 2 parameters, 5 parameters, 10 parameters, as long as required, followed by column. Like in if statement, for statement, while statement, etc., in the function definition also, we use column. The column symbol is used to declare functions, if statement, for statement, while statement, etc. Here we have our statements, of course, all indented equally. Of course, since I have if statement here, I need to indent one more. Since I have a for statement here, I need to indent one more. But the other statements, this, and that, are part of the factorial function. So here I have my function defined. What I'm doing here for all j, or let's say k, or whatever, for all k from 1 to n plus 1, what do we do? Call the factorial. If k, here k will get the values 1 to 8, n is 8, 8 plus 1 is 9. From 1 to 9, 9 exclusive, so it will generate values from 1 to 8. For each of these values, 1 to 8, stored into the variable k, compute the factorial of this k, and put into fn and print fn. Let's run this. I have my output. So again, we start with def keyword, followed by, of course, a space, then function name, between parentheses, the parameters, followed by colon, and then equally indented the statements that makes the body of the function is written there. So this is how we define function. Let's write one more function. Let's check here if we have some other things. Of course, the f here is a local variable. The f here is only used here. If I try to print, for example, print f, I'll get an error. Why? Because this f is defined here, is assigned here, and returned here. It is local to the function. I don't have this f in my main part. This is the main part, and this is the function. By the way, in Python, you can write another function func2 with some parameters a comma b and do some operation on that, etc. Blah 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 blah, etc. And then you can have another main part. X is equal to 88, y is equal to -7, and then z is equal to, let's say, func2 with x comma y, etc. You can have this type of things. Here I have my function declaration, and then a main program part. I have here another function declaration and continue my main. This is possible in Python, okay? Because this function finishes when the indentation is finished. This and these two lines have equal indentation. So this 3 lines makes the func2 function. And similarly, here, these have equal indentation. So the function definition is finished here, okay? On line 8, the function definition of the fact function is finished. So anything here is part of the main. Here, this is the definition of the second function, and I used here. So this is quite valid for Python, okay? So you can have multiple functions defined in your program. However, before using this func2, you need to define func2, okay? If you put these statements below, you may have some problems. So before using a function or calling a function, you have to declare the function. This is the declaration or definition of the function. And here is the definition of the factorial function. Okay. So this is quite logical. And in 2 weeks' time, I started to prepare your first homework. In your first homework, there will be 4 or 5 parts. Each part will be independent of others. And you will have, for example, something like print part 1, maybe some function, and the things that do things about part 1, and then followed by, for example, something like this print. Of course, I don't want to print this just on the next line, but I want to leave one empty line. So what I do, \n part 2, etc. So you will write in your program, you will submit one single Python program, which will contain several questions. Question for the part 1, question for the part 2, etc. And you will write it like this, okay? So I just put here \n so that there will be one empty line before the part 2. It will be just slightly separated from the output of the part 1. So to summarize this, when we define a function, we use def, and all statements in the body of the function are equally indented. Therefore, when the indentation finishes, there is no indentation here. This is outside the function. Therefore, the function definition finishes here. So this part will be the main program statements. Again, similarly, this is the function definition. These are main program statements. So you can write things like this. Let's do something about this, A and B. If A greater or equal to B, return A, else return B. Probably you guess what this function do. It returns the maximum of A and B, for example, okay? If A is greater or equal to B, it returns A. Otherwise, B is greater than A, then it returns B. So let's run it. It will run part 2. Oh, we didn't print anything. Print X, Y, Z, and then we will get some output. So the maximum is 88. We got it. Or if you say, for example, 777, then it will be the second number. Any questions about functions? Next week, I will continue with more function examples. If you have any question, please ask your question. And otherwise, I will stop my lecture. And as I said, next week, I will continue with a few more function examples. And then I will continue with strings in Python, because the next subject is about strings. And there are lots of things that you can do with strings. There is a rich collection of methods, string methods. And I will explain strings to you next week. But for the timing, this is where I will stop. I just explained the basics of functions, but probably writing more functions will facilitate designing and writing functions in a Python program.